Perfect Wisdom. With the divisions of the Abhisamilakra. Translated by EdwardConze 1904–1979. University of California Press, Berkeley, Los Angeles, London. Chapter 72 Exposition of Marklessness. The single instantaneous reunion, which sees all dharmas as devoid of marks. Subhuti. How can there be a fulfillment of the development of the six perfections if all dharmas are undifferentiated, signless, and empty of own marks? How can one conceive of a difference between those dharmas which are with and those which are without outflows? How can one form a concept of the difference between these dharmas with their distinguishing marks when in fact they have on mark only, i.e. no mark? The Lord. Here the bodhisattva, who courses in perfect wisdom, having stood in the conviction that the five skandhas are like a dream, an echo, an image, a mirage, a magical illusion or an apparition, practices the five cardinal virtues. For the five skandhas are like a dream, an image, a mirage, a magical illusion, an apparition, and devoid of marks. And why? Because a dream has no own being, nor has an echo, and that which has no own being, that has no mark. By this method also one should know that the gift is without mark, and so is the giver and recipient. One who gives gifts after having cognized this, fulfills the perfection of giving, but does not turn away from the other five perfections. Having stood in these six perfections, he fulfills the four trances, too. The 18 special Buddha dharmas. Having stood in these dharmas without outflows which are born of karma result, he travels to the world systems in the 10 directions with the help of his wonder-working powers. And there honors and serves the Buddhas and Lords. And so on, until we come to. He works the wheel of beings by helping them in every way. He wins over by gifts those who should be won over by gifts, too. He wins over by all wholesome dharmas those who should be won over by all wholesome dharmas. Endowed with these wholesome roots he accepts rebirth in samsara, as one who is a sovereign over all dharmas, but he is not contaminated by the sufferings which pertain to samsara. For the sake of beings he accepts rebirth in the relatively prosperous condition of gods and men, and that enables him to win over beings. He cognizes all dharmas as without marks, and also cognizes the fruit of a stream winner, but does not take his stand on it. And so on up to the enlightenment of a pratyeka Buddha. And why? Because, when he has cognized all dharmas, he should reach the knowledge of all modes which is not shared by any of the disciples and pratyeka Buddhas. It is thus that the bodhisattva, having cognized all dharmas as without marks, cognizes the six perfections, too. All Buddha dharmas as without marks. Moreover, the bodhisattva, cursing in perfect wisdom, having stood in the conviction that the five grasping skandhas are like a dream, too. Like an apparition, fulfills the perfection of morality. Having cognized the five grasping skandhas as like a dream, too. Like an apparition. He fulfills the markless perfection of morality. Which is unimpaired. Flawless. Unspotted. Pure. Untarnished. Which sets free from the slavery of craving, which has been lauded by the wise, which one has well taken upon oneself, and which is holy, without outflows, included within the path and supramundane. Having stood therein he guards the morality which consists in the verbal intimation that one has undertaken to observe the moral precepts, which is acquired in the nature of things. Which is due to restraint, which is announced, which is habitual, and which is non-habitual. Endowed with these kinds of morality he does not misconstrue the situation by thinking, through this practice of morality I shall be reborn in good warrior families, or in good Brahmin families, or in the families of wealthy householders, or as a universal monarch, or as the commander of a fort, or among the gods. Or, alternatively, I shall win the fruit of a stream winner, too. Enlightenment. And why? Because all dharmas are without marks, with one mark only. With the mark of having non-existence for their own being. And a markless dharma cannot win a markless dharma. Nor can a dharma with distinguishing marks win a dharma with distinguishing marks. Nor can dharmas which are markless and without distinguishing marks attain dharmas which are markless and without distinguishing marks. It is thus that the bodhisattva, coursing in perfect wisdom, fulfills the markless perfection of morality and then enters on the bodhisattva's way of certain salvation. Thereafter he acquires the patient's acceptance of dharmas which fail to be produced. He courses in the knowledge of the modes of the path. Acquires the 5 superknowledges which are born of karma result. Establishes himself in the 500 dharmas doors and the 500 concentration doors, and acquires the 4 analytical knowledges. Thereafter he passes on from Buddha field to Buddha field, honors the Buddhas and Lords, matures beings and acquires a Buddha field for himself. He wanders about in the world of birth and death with its 5 places of rebirth, but he is not contaminated by the karma which is bound up with the world of birth and death or by its results. Just as a magical creation walks about, stands, sits, and lies down, though its coming is not observed as a real fact nor its going, nor its standing, sitting, or lying down, just so he works the wheel of beings, but does not apprehend a being or the concept of a being. Just as the Tathagata who has won full enlightenment, after he has known full enlightenment, has turned the wheel of Dharma and led countless beings to nirvana through the 2 vehicles, does not apprehend any bodhisattva whom he might have predicted to the supreme enlightenment. Having let go the factors which make for a long life, he has entered nirvana which leaves nothing behind after he has conjured up a magical creation. And that magical creation, after he has predicted the enlightenment of that bodhisattva after an eon has elapsed, wins final nirvana through the supreme enlightenment. But one cannot apprehend any entity in him who has won final nirvana, i.e. none of the skandhas. It is thus that the bodhisattva works the wheel of beings, although he does not apprehend a being or the concept of a being. In this way the bodhisattva, who courses in perfect wisdom, fulfills the perfection of morality, and in its fulfillment all dharmas are contained. Moreover the bodhisattva, who courses in perfect wisdom, having stood in the conviction that the 5 grasping skandhas are like a dream, too, are apparitions, fulfills the markless perfection of patience. And how does the bodhisattva, having stood in markless dharmas, fulfill the perfection of patience? Here he fulfills the perfection of patience by way of 2 kinds of patience. Which 2? The patience which means toleration and the patience which can look through to dharmas. What, then, is the patience which means toleration? During the entire time which elapses between his first thought of enlightenment and his being seated on the terrace of enlightenment, even through all beings should again and again revile and abuse him, and should use towards him mendacious and harsh words, or would give him blows with clods, sticks, or swords, the bodhisattva, who desires to fulfill the perfection of patience, should not produce even one single thought associated with rage or ill will. And with regard to these beings he should intensely reflect that they are surely afflicted with the defilements and that he should produce towards them a thought which contains no evil. And he should think that when I have taken hold of these skandhas I have taken hold of what are deadly enemies. When, as he thus reflects, he becomes full of friendliness and compassion, then one speaks of the patience which means toleration. And what is the patience which can look through to dharmas? It consists in that he does not apprehend even those beings in the ultimate sense, and so he asks himself, who abuses or reviles me, who uses towards me mendacious or harsh words, or who gives me blows with clods, sticks, or swords? Like a magical illusion are all conditioned things, worthless, insignificant, void, fashioned like the firmament, devoid of self, arisen from imagination. All these are discriminate in such a way, basing myself on the emptiness of own being and the emptiness of ultimate reality. This is called the patience which can look through to dharmas. When he considers thus he fulfills the perfection of patience, and when he has done so, he acquires the patient acceptance of dharmas which fail to be produced. Subhuti. What is this patient acceptance of dharmas which fail to be produced? What is its definition, and what is its cognition? The Lord. Even the least anu dharma is not produced, and that is why one speaks of what fails to be produced anutpadakam. And here the cognition is called patient acceptance, and through that cognition he acquires the patient acceptance of dharmas which fail to be produced. Subhuti. Is there any difference between the patient acceptance of dharmas which fail to be produced on the part of the disciples and pratyekabuddhas on the one side and on the part of the bodhisattva on the other? The Lord. What is the cognition and forsaking of the stream winner, to the pratyekabuddha, that is part of the patience of the bodhisattva? And this is the difference between the patience of all the disciples and pratyekabuddhas and that of the bodhisattvas. That the bodhisattva, who is endowed with this such-like patience, surpasses all the disciples and pratyekabuddhas. For, when he has stood in this patience, in the patient acceptance of dharmas which fail to be produced, he courses in the path of a bodhisattva and fulfills